Hello, folks. We're back. We're better than ever. Welcome to the Danswers podcast. I don't know in what way we're better than ever. I guess I've made small improvements in my life that might have made me better, but who knows? I might have become worse since the last episode. We we don't. I guess you're going to be the judge of that in the comment section. Also, while we're talking about the comment section, please subscribe on whatever interface you are listening on, whether it be Spotify or YouTube. It just helps me build a base, helps me understand how many people are listening to this. Although I would honestly do this to 2 or 3 people. Maybe that's not inciting the amount of, sort of stick-to-itiveness and fortitude of my listenership that I should try to be cultivating. But hey, I'm only one man. And I guess I should be honest with you folks and let you know it would be great to get like 30,000 listens per episode. However, I would do this to 2 or 3 people. I would do this to 2 or 3 people even if one of those 2 or 3 people hated me. That's just how I'm built. Welcome to the Danswers podcast. I am your host, Dan Donohue. We have a lot of questions to field from Reddit that I think go into very deep, dark, evil, but also in many ways good places. But I just wanted to fill you in on the career. This is the first solo episode we've done in a little while because I've had guests on. And if you want to check out those guest episodes, they're sort of testers for future guest episodes to come. And I just wanted to fill you guys in, talk to you one-on-one. Hey, how are you? Sorry about those plugs, but we got through them together, didn't we? Aren't you sold enough? I mean, again, I'm doing a really bad job of self-promotion here, but aren't you sold enough shit? You know what? Disregard all the stuff that I said. If you like the podcast, do whatever you want. I really, in good conscience, can't sell you more things. I was just reading this thing. I think it's Sony has a patent on this thing where if you're watching TV or a streaming platform, a commercial will come on, and instead of watching the whole commercial, you can scream the name of the product and the commercial will end, because subconsciously that will indoctrinate you into thinking the product is good or a part of your life. Is that not one of the darkest things you've ever heard? Because a lot of people would do it. I would probably do it if I'm trying to watch a movie. It's like, listen, I'm trying to watch Blade Runner. I don't have time for this Febreze commercial. I'm trying to watch Blade Runner. I'm trying to watch Wesley Snipes in his prime. What a man Wesley Snipes in his prime was. Blade Runner, White Men Can't Jump. Then the taxes got to him. Well, maybe other stuff got to him before the taxes, but the taxes is, you gotta, I mean, that's the one thing you can do and this probably isn't true, it's hyperbole, but please let me finish. I do feel like if you were a person in power, if you're a very, very powerful person, you gotta have a good accountant. Because if you're a powerful person and you have a good accountant, you can get away with pretty much anything. But if you're a powerful person without a good accountant, they will find a way to take your ass down. They like a cut of that little check you got. They like to wet their beaks, don't they? God, there's a story I want to tell you guys right now, and I will tell you guys right now because this is my podcast and I decide what happens on it. So I don't know if you've been listening long enough to know this, but I live in an apartment complex with a very, very nice Ukrainian building manager, right? And she speaks English fine, but it's her second language. She's much more comfortable speaking her native language. And I got this hoodie at a thrift store because I've been looking for a hoodie. I'm trying to become a hoodie guy. You ever think, oh, maybe this style change will save me? Do you ever think, oh, if I change my style just enough, maybe I'll become the person I always wanted to be and not this shell of a human being who is before you today? You ever have that thought? I have it all the time. I'll see a dangly earring, I'll see a certain haircut, and I'll go, if I got that, I would no longer be a disappointment to myself and those around me. I have that thought all the time. And recently, which this is a more reasonable version of that, I wanted to get a hoodie. A hooded sweatshirt. like all the cool people wear. I go to a thrift store and there's a hooded sweatshirt and it has a Russian on it, which that that might be a bit of a risk, but it was cheap. And I was like, it probably doesn't say anything that bad in Russian. Whatever, it's probably just a brand name. That's a pretty reasonable thing to think. If you get a hoodie and it has Russian on it, it'll have a brand name on it. But I go to my my landlady. She's very nice. Very nice. She smokes cigarettes. That's cool as it. She smokes so many cigarettes, dude. The amount, I don't know if that's a Ukrainian thing or if that's just kind of a thing, but boy, she takes down a chimney. She's trying to make Chernobyl in her lungs. That's what she, on a daily basis. And here's the thing, I really do believe this. And I think smoking is bad. I think smoking isn't healthy. I think certain people are also kind of just built for smoking more. I don't know if that makes sense. And this isn't scientifically accurate, but let me go into it. There's a certain kind of older person that continues to smoke where I go, your lungs are just different than mine. I feel like if I started smoking, I would start getting health effects immediately because I'm so flimsy. I'm so flimsy and I'm so I'm such a little baby when it comes to health and wellness and stuff. I shopped at a certain grocery store this week because money was a little bit tighter. I shopped at a certain grocery store, and eating the food from that grocery store, I swear to God, I got a little sick. And this isn't like this is a well-known grocery store, but I got a little sick eating the food, and I was like, I better make it. This stuff better start working for me because I require such specific nice things. But anyway, she's one of those wooden lungs older people where she's smoking cigarettes, beer, like those aren't even affecting you. That smoke goes in your lungs, gets scared, and runs away. And I got the hoodie. I go up to her. I go, hey, could you help me translate this? And she goes, oh, yeah, it was such a cute moment in the beginning. It was so sweet in the beginning because she was like, oh, yes, Daniel. Oh, that's so, we don't talk that much, her and I. Like, how often do you talk to your building manager? But she's very nice. She's always around. We complain about the landlord together. And so I go, I have a hoodie and it has Russian on it, and I don't know if you would be able to translate that. She goes, I think I could. Can you get the hoodie? And I take the hoodie out, and I open it up, and I just see her expression drop. I see the expression on her face lose life. And I go, oh no, what does this say? And I go, do you know what it says? And she goes, yeah. I go, oh, what? She goes, well, the first word, it's slang. It means, how do you say bitch? We're not off to a good start. And she goes, and the second word is Italian. It means lasagna. My very nice Ukrainian building manager had to translate for me her stupid American neighbor. Bitch lasagna. And I had to go, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it said that before. And she goes, folks, maybe being nice and kind to my neighbors just isn't the thing to me. Maybe you know those people who keep their heads down, your neighbors, the people who live next to you in the apartment building you live in. You know those people who just kind of keep their heads down, even when you say hi, they just kind of nod and they keep going. Maybe they got it right. Maybe those people understand something we don't. Maybe they had a bitch lasagna moment that they have to deal with in their own heads. And they go, no, nope, never again. It's funny how often I'll bet that sort of thing shapes us as communicating animals, right? How often just one bad interaction will deter us from future potentially good interactions? Happens a lot, I'm sure. It's very unfortunate. It's very sad when that sort of thing happens. But you got to keep trying. You got to keep trying. You got to keep talking to people. As much as it hurts you. As much as it never goes your way. As much as you continue to leave those interactions feeling more hurt and confused than you were before, you got to keep talking to people. They're around. And sometimes you need stuff from them, like food or a license plate. And you got to keep talking to people. It's unfortunate. I know you're sitting there. Listen, you're a podcast listener. If you're listening to this, you are listening to a solo podcast. I'm like this too. I like listening to solo podcasts because I get a little bit anxious when it's two people talking to each other. Because sometimes there's a moment of awkwardness in the conversation that makes me feel uncomfortable. I swear to God. I swear that I know that's crazy, but it's like I don't like cringy comedy and stuff, you know? That's why I don't love The Office. Watching The Office is very painful to me. I understand it to be funny, right? When Dwight does his antics or whatever, but it's not that kind of comedy. Just is not my cup of tea. But yeah, but we gotta keep trying. We gotta keep going to the store in our neighborhood where we get maybe coffee or a bagel. And you go to the cashier and you try to ask them how their day was, and they kind of grunt at you. It's so brutal. It really is. It's so brutal when you try to speak to somebody. Like, you get out of your comfort zone. You go, this is my moment. This is my time to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to do it. I'm going to push through. And then the other person on the other side of that is like, nah. And that's going to happen. That's going to happen. I mean, I think things are circling back a little bit. Now, tell me if I'm right here in the comments, or if I'm wrong. It'd be funny if I was like, tell me if I'm right, but if I'm wrong, don't say anything. But I think that people are starving to be asked out by a person in real life again. Do you feel that? Every question I get when I open up the questions for dancers, which I do on Patreon all the time, not to plug the Patreon, but when I open up the questions, there's always a question that's like, how do I deal with the hellscape of dating apps? And I guess you just got to ask the question. You don't got to ask the question, but it's an interesting question to go. Before dating apps, when we had to ask people out in public, we had to meet people through friends, all that stuff. That was messy, right? So I guess you got to ask, which mess do you prefer? Dating apps, I got to be honest with you folks, they work for me. That's a privileged thing to say. That's a privileged place to be. I've always said I am a straight man, and I think it would be insulting to not admit to all of you that it's the easiest thing to be when you're trying to find love, because you're looking for straight women, and straight women's bars for the straight men that go after them are so incredibly low that, I mean, I'm just graded on this bell curve of like, oh, this is pretty easy, you know? I mean, I got to, if I sat here being like, oh, it is so hard, like I feel like I would be doing all of you a disservice. I feel like I would be doing all of you wrong by trying to make my life sound harder than it is. Dating, I gotta say, for the last, now, Prior to the last 5 years, very difficult. Almost never happened. But the last 5 years, I gotta say, cakewalk. Life other than that has been pretty challenging, especially when it comes to like trying to find a career in comedy, trying to get the podcast off the ground, trying to going back and forth on whether or not I have to get a day job because of the tightness of money, right? Like these are all things I deal with. I gotta say, dating been pretty nice. I've really liked it. I've really enjoyed it, I gotta say. But I guess you gotta ask the question, like the dating apps thing. I know how goddamn hard. The worst thing about dating apps is for people who have great personalities. It's much more challenging to convey that on a dating app than it is in real life. That's so unfortunate. You know who dating apps benefit? Guys like me. Dum-dums who take a good picture. I mean, it sucks. It really does suck. I'm being very candid with all of you. I feel like the advent of dating apps probably really helped me in terms of dating, because people would see my pictures and then have to learn later on, once they were too invested, that I'm pretty stupid. That, you know what I mean? That is really good for me personally. But if you're a guy with like a great personality who doesn't take a great picture, who doesn't have great pictures, like whatever, God, dating apps really ruined it for you. I guess you still have the option of talking to people in public, but have you tried talking to someone in public lately? It's crazy. It's crazy. Half of the time you just end up talking to a pair of headphones. It's interesting. I feel bad. Same with women, of course. I think that the dating pool, the whatever, like however you look at it, dating apps really change things and really, I think, flatten things in terms of the way we look at people, the way we think about people's personalities, the way that we kind of break people down to just their physical forms. Because you can get a joke or two in, but if you're really, really funny, it's just hard to get that through on a dating app. If you can do that, salute. You've done a very difficult thing there, but I just don't know how you did it. I'm very fortunate in that way. I feel like it would be dishonest to all of you to try to convey that I'm not. A big thing about stand-up comedy, a big thing, is being vulnerable and accentuating your shortcomings, which I think is very important. I gotta be honest with you. I don't like this kind of, and listen, if you do stand up and you feel like you fall into this category, I'm just talking about my own personal taste. And also, the kind of guy I'm describing has a really easy time anyway, so yeah, maybe take this on the chin. But it's like this new thing of like I'm like a super handsome, cool guy, and I'm going to talk about how cool I am on stage and stuff. It's like, I don't love that. It's just not for me personally. But then there's this other thing where, like, because stand-up comedy is about accentuating your shortcomings, there's a lot of stand-up comics who will try to obfuscate the fact that, their looks have really helped them, or they'll try to be like, oh, X, Y. I try to not do that. Right? I try to not do that. Because I have so many more shortcomings. That's the thing. I have a lot more. I have the spelling level of a first grader. I have a lot of undiagnosed stuff and diagnosed stuff going on. I'm crazy. These are all things that really help me in the stand-up comedy field. So I don't need to go up and be like, yeah, it's so hard being handsome. what are we talking about? It's hard that people tend to like you right off the bat. It's hard that you have to put in work to make people not like you down the road. What are we talking about? What anything that makes you notable, anything that makes you stand out. With a few exceptions, but I would say in the grand scheme of thing, like it helps. It does. It does. Even if it seems like a shortcoming at first, but being handsome, that one, I mean, you're just walking through the world differently. You got to understand the halo effect is real and does exist, and you just need to be aware of that. I don't know. There's just so much contrarian stuff out there like that. Oh, being handsome is actually hard for people have asked me that. Does being handsome hurt? It's like, hey, something that's never happened? Someone going, wow, that joke is really good, but the guy who told it is too handsome. Has never happened. I truly, if I know there's people there like being like, oh, yeah, well, actually, no. In reality, no. You can come up with this like contrived, like, yeah, well, people just you get on stage and people hate you right away. If I mean, no, doesn't happen. That really doesn't happen. You might be a little more on edge. I'll say this, because I've had this experience where uh, there will be like let's take this out of stand up comedy. Let's take it into the real world. There'll be a situation, where a very handsome tall guy will come up, and I will be on edge immediately. Do you ever have this? This is a great example of insecurity. Do you ever have it where someone who you think is better looking than you will, like someone who, you'll be in a social situation with someone who you think is better than you, and you'll immediately start trying to find shortcomings with them to justify why you can say like, oh, well, I'm still better than that person. Like a person will come up to you and they'll be like really handsome and tall and charismatic, but in your head you're like, well, I'll bet they're like mean to their grandma. No, not necessarily. Why are you doing that? Yeah, sure. That guy has got really nice teeth and he's tall and super handsome, but like I bet you he's like mean to his aunt. I'll bet you he doesn't work very hard. Why would you I mean, you just met the guy. Why would you extrapolate that? I mean, there's plenty. Unfortunately, there's plenty of ugly people that are very mean to their grandma, and there's plenty of handsome people that also work hard. And it sucks. It sucks when someone comes up to you. Oh, doesn't that suck? When you're like with your girlfriend, and a guy comes up and he's more handsome than you, and he's taller, and then he's also nice. Ugh. Shut up. Get out of here. uh, anyway, I was just thinking about this. I was driving back to my apartment, and I was listening to the radio because I try to not look at my phone until I get some work done in the morning. I was driving back to my apartment, and Frank Sinatra came on the radio on the jazz station that I listen to. Every time I listen to Frank Sinatra, I can't help but remember I had an ex-girlfriend who was like a very online person, right? A very online, very Twitter heavy, very Twitter forward kind of person. And we were driving home from somewhere, and I put on Frank Sinatra, and she said, "Frank Sinatra sucks." And I said, "What?" And maybe this is because I am a straight white guy, and Frank Sinatra for some reason just really resonates with the soul of a man who maybe isn't Italian but would like to be. And by the way, she wasn't talking about Frank Sinatra as a human being, who I'm sure, I mean, listen, he was famous in like the 50s and 60s. Yeah, there's a good I haven't looked into the past of Frank Sinatra. I don't know anything about his life. There's a pretty good chance there was some pretty unchill stuff going on back then with the Rat Pack. He was in a group called the Rat Pack. You know, only history will tell. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comments the evil. I mentioned Gandhi in a video, and someone was like, Gandhi was a terrible person. I haven't looked into it. I don't know a lot about the personal life of Gandhi, but can we say he may have been personal in his terrible life, but probably had some pretty, decent parts to his personality too? I mean, it's not. It's hard because it's not like doing good things make up for the bad things. But I think good things do kind of make, especially in perpetuity when the person is dead. Like Gandhi isn't going to rise from the grave and touch your niece, right? He's gone. And it's like, I feel like there were probably some good parts to his character. I feel like to say someone was a terrible person, they also can't have any part in liberating India from the British. Is that fair? I'm sure Gandhi did terrible things in his personal life. I'm positive of it. I read a little bit about it, and it's like, yeah, this seems really kind of crazy and bad. I'm sure of it. But can we say, at worst, he was probably pretty conflicted? I mean, it's just hard to look at someone who had a huge part in, again, liberating India from the British Empire and to go, that guy was a terrible person. Right? Is that fair? Is that the overall impact of that person's life? Can we say there was some good in there? Hitler, that was a terrible person. That was a guy who obviously incited the greatest act of evil in human history, and also was probably pretty fucked up in his personal life. My buddy Dylan Sabiza, great comic, check him out on Instagram. He has a great joke where he was like, Hitler also didn't marry Ava Braun. And like he was talking about like his friend was surprised about that, and he was like, yeah, Hitler was like a bad guy. I won't ruin the punchline to his joke, but it's such a funny idea because it's like that is very true. But it's like Frank Sinatra. Listen, again, I haven't dug into his past. You want to know why I haven't? And this is funny. I don't need to. I don't think I need to. I don't really like. He's gone, right? I'm not like giving him money from listening to his music. He's not getting any of the streams revenue. I don't know who's getting the streams revenue. What if it's someone worse than Frank? What if like Harvey Weinstein is getting the Frank Sinatra? In which case, I would stop listening to Frank Sinatra. I stopped listening to R. Kelly, as many people did. If you know what? If you didn't, it's like, I don't know. I can only go off what I personally. You know how I judge these sorts of things is like, I have my own code of ethics, which I'm sure is just as weird and messed up as your code of ethics. Like, you always make these attritions. I'll eat chicken, but I try to not eat pork because I like pigs more than chickens. That doesn't mean pigs feel more pain than chickens. It's just my dumb brain being like, I think that one's cute and I don't like that one's eyes, so I will eat that one. That's crazy. So with R. Kelly, it's like, yeah, I try to not listen to R. Kelly. But if someone I knew listened to R. Kelly, just based off that, I wouldn't stop being their friend. I would probably be like, "Oh, you're gonna listen to like if they have it on repeat, if they're listening to more R. Kelly now than they were before, that's probably something to talk to them about. But I would still be their friend, you know. But then there's stuff where it's like, I don't know if we're gonna be friends anymore after that. That's kind of my overall judge of character. Again, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it doesn't need to make sense. So again, back to Frank Sinatra. She said Frank Sinatra's music sucked. Let me say this. If you're just going to sit down and say Frank Sinatra sucks, there's musicians where their music doesn't really hit me, right? Their music doesn't really resonate with me. But I'm not going to sit down and say they suck. What are we Frank Sinatra sucks? I'll be completely truthful and talk about somebody who fell out of public grace, but it's like Michael Jackson's music never really resonated with me. And a lot of you guys are probably thinking, oh, the whitest guy in the world with no rhythm? Yeah, oh, big surprise that Michael Jackson's music never resonated with you. But it never resonated with me. I'm not going to sit around and say Michael Jackson's music sucked. No, of course not. One of the most talented musicians in history. And I think there is this, like, contrarian thing that people love getting into. Where they'll be, because it's so much easier to say something sucks than to say something is good. It's easier to tear down a house than it is to build one. We know this. Also, I've torn down a house. It's actually pretty hard. People will use this analogy to say it's easier to tear something down than to build it back up, to be like, oh, it's easier to tear down a house than it is to build one. I've torn down a house. It's really hard. You got to like smash the drywall and it's really, really difficult. I had to do a demolition where we were like taking out a wall in this house, and I'm sure putting up a wall is also really hard. But tearing it down was pretty difficult. I think I got asbestos poisoning from that. So it's not the easiest thing in the world. But it's always easier to say that sucked and then to pick it apart. But I think it's much more of a statement of like someone's overall ability to enjoy life, to like something, right? That doesn't mean you have to sit around and like everything that comes your way, but to just go Frank, God, you know what? I said all of this. We went all the way from Gandhi to Hitler to R. Kelly in this rant here, but if I'm going to be honest with myself, sitting in front of you folks, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I actually think it just pissed me off because I like listening to Frank Sinatra. I try to like logic my way into all of my opinions, but really sometimes it's just sometimes it's just feeling, and my feeling is that I like it. And when she said she thought it sucked, it made me mad. Sometimes it's just that. Sometimes you gotta just accept that it's just that. Kendrick Lamar actually had a song recently that I really like, where he mentions that what does he say? Talent doesn't always seek out morality. And it's interesting. It's nice when it does. Seems like with Kendrick it did. You know, it's funny that Kendrick Lamar said that because it seems like he's a pretty upstanding guy. I've liked his work. And 2 days later, right after I post this comes out, he's like the worst guy ever. It's just the way it goes, man. It's confusing. It's hard. It's hard listening and like watching things. But I also do think now, again, when it comes to curbing your listening and viewing habits based on like horrible actions, like I can see if someone does something that like really sours your ability to listen to them, to not listen to them anymore, that makes perfect sense to me. I completely understand. But also, I think when it comes to movies and music itself, people always nowadays seem to need that piece of media to reflect their own moral compass, their own moral life. And I don't know about that. I think sometimes you can just watch a movie and enjoy it, and it doesn't need to be deep. Like, I feel like people look at art and they're like, oh, well, what does this mean? What's like the social commentary of this? It doesn't have to. We don't need everything to have social commentary. I think social commentary should be social commentary. I think there's great pieces of media with social commentary in it, but it doesn't always have to. Like, my comedy doesn't really have social commentary in it. I guess, like, in the vaguest terms, sure. But I'm never thinking about that when I try to do stand-up. I'm always just trying to think of what's funny. But, anywho. Oh, speaking of comedy. Last night, I had 2 really great shows back to back. I had so much fun. I did this venue called Dynasty Typewriter. Shout out Dynasty Typewriter, one of the best venues in LA. I've been truly dreaming of doing this venue for so long. And finally, I got my opportunity to, and it went really well. I was really happy with my performance. And then I shot right to Culver City, did another show with a bunch of young kids, young up-and-coming kids. They're hungry. They're trying new things. They're very exciting to watch. And I had a good set there, too. And have you ever had a day go well? Have you ever had things work out, but you are so accustomed to things kind of being bad and stupid that you go, something's going to happen to me. This debt will be collected. I hate that. I hate that my brain immediately does that, but it so does. Anytime I have a good day, I'm like, a piano's going to fall on me, Looney Tunes style. I'm going to get a Looney Tunes ass retribution for this good day. I don't know why. I guess I'm just so, like, programmed and conditioned to be like, oh, things never work. Like, then when it does work out, you're like, something. I'm incurring a debt here. Maybe all that stuff that didn't work out for you was building up so you get a little treat. How about that? I'm sick and tired of that. Anyway, we got some Reddit to go into, folks. Let's get to these questions. Here's some good ones. Here's one. What happened to gym culture? I recently hit the gym again after not going for 8 years, only to rehab a sports injury. 8 years to rehab a sports injury. You are a beautiful soldier. I am so sorry that you had an 8-year sports injury. That sort of thing makes me, like, cringe. I feel bad for you. An 8-year sports injury. That bums me out. Because it's like, man, like you're one other person's mistake away from that. One person makes one mistake and your fucking back breaks or your shoulder dislocates. Somebody like is texting for too long as you're crossing the street. Life sucks. God, being a human being, if you can fucking open your eyes, if you're able to listen and process to this podcast, like, God, there's a level of luck that you have, isn't there? Right now, if you're listening to this, and I know there might be people who are listening to this with chronic ailments or disabilities or what have you, but if you can, to whatever degree you are mobile, to whatever degree you do have autonomy, for the love of God, appreciate it. You are one bad driver away from a fucking horrible, horrible life of pain. Back when I used to go to the gym regularly in my 20s, it was a social place where strangers would chat with each other in between sets and spot other people at random. None of that happens anymore. Also, my wife warned me to not even look in the direction of a woman working out lest I get reported and kicked out of the gym. Has it gotten that bad? No, it hasn't gotten that bad. Who is your wife? Is your wife Rush Limbaugh? People are too. Social media's, I think, really ruin people's brains in this way. And I'm not saying social media's ruined people's brains in that, like, it makes people more touchy when it comes to other people looking at them at the gym. I think it really, like, it gives us the concept that the world is actually like that. It's like, no, you can. I go to the gym in my little shorts and my little tank top. I get looked at. It's fine. What? No one cares. Sometimes there will be a person who comes into the gym and you can't help but like take a little glance. Just don't stare at people, right? Don't stare at them. Don't try to move closer to them to get a whiff of their ass or whatever. But it's like, yeah, I mean, if someone's, people look at each other. That's whatever. People take the conversation of like, particularly women. It's like, oh, women are uncomfortable at gyms. Don't be weird to them. Don't approach them if they don't want to be approached. Like if a woman is wearing headphones and working out, don't fucking bother her because you think she's hot. Like these are all things that make sense. But then there'd be a guy who'd be, oh, you can't even look at a woman anymore. No one is saying that. Who are you talking about? No one is saying that. Literally, no. That is just you. It's like, oh, man. I mean, people get confused because there will be parody of a point. There will be parody of a social movement. And then people will confuse that parody with the actual social movement. I tried just because I was curious. There was this book called, like, I forget the name. I honestly don't even want to plug the book. But the book proposed that the word woke was co-opted and is used now amongst liberals to identify themselves. And it's like, no, the word woke is now exclusively used to disparage people who are like, of that's not a word that like left people on the left use to distinguish themselves. That is exclusively a word that people on the right use to describe people on the left. No one, I'm around like the east side of Los Angeles constantly. No one's like, I'm woke. No one says that. It's like no one is saying you can't look in the direction of a woman working out without getting reported. No one is saying that. It's great, and it's taking away from the fucking conversation too. Where it's like there's so little nuance in the world, and it's really, really unfortunate because if we had a little nuance, we could actually have these conversations. It would benefit fucking everybody, but we're babies. So if somebody proposes like, hey, like, women get bothered in the gym, then there's immediately a reaction or a response that's like, oh, so I can't even look at a woman? And then there's a response from the other side that's like, you're a fucking pig, I fucking hate you. And it's just, listen. Everybody calm down. I know what this conversation needs. A straight white guy with a mustache to weigh in. No one's saying that you can't look at someone. There's a difference between looking and staring in a way that makes that person uncomfortable. Unfortunately, we need to fucking dumb down this conversation because there are a lot of stupid people out there. And stupid people will hear me say, yeah, it's okay to look at someone and go, oh, cool, so I'm going to camp out behind a squat rack and stare at a woman's ass for 30 minutes. You have to now account for that guy when you're making a general statement. But if you're talking to, I think, a vast majority of people, they understand the thing where it's like, yeah, if someone's in the gym and you think they're hot, you're going to, like, take a glance at them. That makes sense. That's fine. Both groups of people, whatever. Women look at each other at the gym. In fact, sometimes they do it for too long. You know what I'm saying? Hey, ladies, calm down. I see you, and you ogle, and it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous what you do. I had a girlfriend who was bisexual once, and we were with our mutual friends, and one of my mutual friends got up and walked away, and I caught my girlfriend looking at her ass. I was like, hey, tighten up. Get it together. No one taught you decorum. How dare you? But it's like, yeah, no one is saying that you can't look at a woman in the gym. They're just saying don't be weird. Don't stare at them. Don't like approach them, especially if they like clearly have their headphones on and are trying to do their own thing. Everybody's different too, and this is a general thing, but I think it's good to have a basis. It's like the definition of like a formality. Or not, maybe it's not formality. I don't know the word I'm looking for. It's like manners. Manners are like a basis of action that everyone should follow to keep everybody else comfortable, right? Like there's a bunch of women, not like a ton, but I've just heard from a friend of mine and more than one person who's like, oh, I liked getting catcalled. And it's like, yeah, but you got to understand, guys are going to listen to that and be like, see, women liking cat. It's like, no, she likes getting catcalled. You know what I mean? Maybe we just come up with a system, right? Because you shouldn't like act in a certain way because someone is wearing something. But if you're a woman, you want to get catcalled, maybe we should just invent like a very specific pin that you wear with like a construction worker hat and a thumbs up. If you are one of those women that likes getting catcalled, honestly, that's fucking genius. Although the women that do wear that and that want to get catcalled when they like meet up with their women friends will have to like hide it really quick because they'll be embarrassed. But anyway, yeah, shut up to this guy's. I guess it was his wife who said that you can't look in the direction of. I doubt that she actually said that. Of course, gyms back then had one or two pervs, but that didn't stop everybody from being friendly. Plus, everyone knew who the pervs were. Yeah, so I don't think I understand the general topic of like gym culture sort of being less of a thing now, at least in commercial gyms. But I think you're kind of coming at it from the wrong angle. You're like, oh, no one's talking to each other because, because they're afraid of getting like a harassment lawsuit. Also, it's like I go to a rock climbing gym, right? And it's a good rock climbing gym. Like it's very, very well run. I love the culture of the rock climbing gym. Very open, very like I mean, it's about as like progressive as you can be. Like as far as the culture of this gym is concerned. And I have never once seen anyone get upset at someone talking to them if it's a normal conversation. Like if you're climbing and there's like a thing that you're working on and there's another person working on it, man or woman, it's very normal to be like, yeah, that one's really hard or whatever. And then maybe you strike up a conversation, maybe you don't. Take the fucking social cues. That's the thing. No one's going to arrest you for that. No one's going to get mad. What they get mad at you for is if you're persistent at that when it's clear that person doesn't want to get talked to. When you're telling someone to take their fucking headphones off so you can say they look beautiful today. There's obviously a spectrum here. But again, it's really hard these days because no one understands nuance, right? Like there's a big difference. There's a big difference between like, you're at the gym, you're waiting for a machine, like you're sitting next to somebody. And here's the other issue. And this is really telling, is that person talking to members of the same sex too. Like, I think the difference between someone who's being a little bit creepy and someone who's just generally social is that, and this doesn't just go for the gym, this kind of goes everywhere, and it's really easy to spot this among, like, your male friends or whatever. A guy who is kind of just talking to everybody, like, if I'm climbing, like, a climb that's really difficult, right, that I'm just not getting, and there's another guy doing it, And I talk to that. I'll very happily talk to that guy. But I'll be, hey, are you putting like your left hand over here? Like we'll get into a conversation about it. And that's great. And if it's a woman doing the same thing, she seems to have it figured out. I'll ask her a question about it too. But if you're a fucking guy and you're not talking to the guy, you're both doing a V4, you're both dead silent, and then as soon as a woman starts doing the V4, all of a sudden you're the fucking professor. You're the professor of the gym. Oh, hey, you're trying that V4. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's weird. We all understand why that's weird, because clearly there's an ulterior motive to you only wanting to talk to the woman and not to the guy. Do we understand? Does that make sense to everybody? But there's like no opening to nuance in that conversation, unfortunately. But it is what it is. But to what this guy is saying, I think it's much more simple. I think it's just like headphones became super popular. I mean, that's pretty. I was recently at a gym and a guy asked me to spot him, because I had one of my headphones off and I didn't hear him completely, and I took my headphones off. He was like, "Oh, could you spot me?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." But if I had my headphones completely on, I wouldn't have even heard him. He probably wouldn't have even approached me to spot him. So it's like, yeah, I think if you want to be social at the gym, and this is unfortunate, but it's something that a lot of people aren't willing to do, take your headphones off. Also, be normal. If you're a weirdo, if you're gonna smell the bench after someone uses it, put your headphones on. Find another activity to do. Find peace in your own life before going to the gym. You can't go to the gym feral, people. You just can't go to the gym feral. And I like how this guy is like, oh, yeah, there were one or two pervs at the gym, but that never stopped anyone. It's like, yeah, well, I mean, you're a dude, so I feel like that the pervs probably weren't going after you in the same way. And if they were, it's like just a different dynamic, obviously. I know this because not that this like gives me a special. I'm just gonna give an anecdote. Okay? There was one time I felt really, really uncomfortable at a gym where I would work out and there was this like group of dudes there, like big fucking like group of dudes there. And they would like take equipment. They were like really rowdy. This was not a good gym. This was a really shitty gym. This is in Sweden, actually. So it was like a 24-hour gym, and it was not good. And they started like fucking with me because I would always just come there by myself, but they were like clearly in a group. And I hated it. They would like, I would use a piece of equipment, and they would start using it like I was clearly like still there. And then I would be like, oh, can I work in? And they'd be like, huh, no. I got like bullied as an adult. It's so fucking embarrassing. And, we had like confrontations. We had words with each other. I would tell them to fuck off. They would like stand near me and intimidate me and shit like that. It was fucking weird. And it's like, with that dynamic, it was like one of the few instances that I've felt like physically unsafe in a situation. But that's something that certain people feel all the time, So it's just one of those things, man. Like you just gotta understand people have different experiences than you, and sometimes you just have to take their word for it. I think that people like, I don't know. It's so easy, I think, in a lot of ways, to defer to the people who are having the experience. It's like I don't know what their experience is at the gym. So I defer to them, and they say it's bad, and I don't know. It's pretty easy. I don't have any information to the contrary. But yeah, it's like earbuds. It's almost 100% just earbuds. Yeah, I don't think you got to dig any deeper than that, buddy. Maybe we have time for one more. Let's take a look here. Yeah, let's do this one. How do you know what your calling is? I'm 22 and I'm at the point where I have to decide various things. things that could make or break my future. I don't know if I'm being dramatic with that thought, but really want to do something I enjoy plus sustain me and my family. But a lot of the times I heard it doesn't go that way. So how do you know what you're supposed to do? How do you know this is what would get you your dreams or goals? Well, I'll answer this in two ways. Everybody's on a different timeline, right? Some people figure out when they're 22, some people figure out when they're 47, and that's just the way life is. Okay? You can't compare your timeline with other people's timelines. You will go crazy if you do that. But I will go ahead and say this. I don't think it's bad to be thinking the way you are thinking as long as it doesn't stifle you, as long as you're not overly committed to the idea like I need to figure it out right now. I think it's good to have these thoughts. I think this is a good sign. I think your psyche is in the right place. When you're 22, you don't have to have the world completely figured out. You're still young, right? I say as old man Dan, you're still young. And you have a big future ahead of you. And the great thing is older people will think you're young. So that's a huge leg up. Use that to your fucking advantage, too. If you at 22 are showing a lot of determination and you're not weird, you can fucking go places. Like I said, I was at that show last night with a bunch of like young comics. And it's so funny to me because now I'm like, there's a whole layer of, because people generally start comedy at the age of like, I would say the average age of starting comedy is probably like 21, give or take. Like there's obviously people who start older, but 21, 22, 23. I would say that's usually when people start stand-up. 21, 22, 23, with a big disparity in either direction. There's a lot of people starting at like 17 now. There's a lot of people who don't start until they're 30. So that just is what it is. But I would say the average age is 21, 22, 23. Now I'm 29. So like that average starting age is now 6 years younger than me. And 6 years is a pretty big difference. So those kids are looking at me, and it's like I'm sort of getting further and further away from being like, oh, we're both young comics. To them, it's not that I'm an old comic, right? Like I'm still pretty young too, but there's like a whole layer of younger comics than me. And talking to them, it is like when one of them goes like, hey, like, if you ever have any advice or whatever. I don't. I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know anything. I'm stupid. I don't have this figured out at all. I had a few successful videos happen when I was washing dishes in the sink, and now I get to headline. It's a crazy experience that I had. But it does make me go down the line if I ever do have any opportunities. The fact that they're so young and they're still showing, like, dedication and interest in this to that level, it does feel it puts them in a good category in my brain. I'll say that. So the fact that you're 22 and you're thinking like this is a good thing. It's like I think that if you show people who you're speaking to that you have this dedication, determination, I'm trying to find my path, because a lot of people aren't. A lot of people are just happy at 22. A lot of people are just drinking. Drugs still don't affect them in the same way. They're getting chlamydia. They're having a good time. So, and you should do that too. Not the chlamydia part. It maybe not even the drinking and drugs part, but like you should be having a good time at 22 as well. But get a little. I think people go a little too far with that. Can I say that? I think people might go a little too far with that whole have a bunch of fun in your youth thing. Because some people can have a bunch of fun in their youth all the way to not knowing what they're supposed to be doing in the 30s. That's a have some fun in your 20s, but the deeper you get into the 20s, the more you should be thinking, what am I here for? Am I here for happy hour? Is that the driving force of my life? An $8 quesadilla? I don't think so. I think you're made for more than that. And I think it's good that this person is thinking this way. I think a lot of people might read this and go, oh, you're being too hard on yourself. I don't think that's right. I really don't. I think you don't have to have it figured out at 22, but you should be thinking about figuring it out at 22. So I like this person. I like their tenacity. I think it's like you have to find the balancing. It's like I went after something pretty crazy at 22, right? Like stand-up comedy. I mean, less crazy than it was years ago. There was more of a path. More people were talking about it. More people are now taking that path, so there's just more opportunities now. But it can be whatever you want, especially at your age. It's like with investing, right? When you're investing and you're younger, you can take riskier investments. But as you get older, you need to take more. Like, you can go for it, man. Like, if there's something you really, really like, at 22, if you're pursuing it earnestly and working really hard, I'm not going to say the sky's the limit. It's like if you tried to pursue acting at this age, that's pretty hard. If you're trying to pursue music and you haven't done anything at this age, that's pretty hard. It's not undoable, but it's pretty hard. But there's a lot of avenues you can go down at this age. So I would say go for passion over short-term money right now. And as you get older and older, start thinking a little bit more about the short-term money. Start thinking a little bit more about that short-term money. But it's good. It's good that you have this. I'm glad that you brought this to the table. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for listening. I really appreciate it. That's the Danswers podcast. Again, please subscribe. Please like on the YouTube. Check out the YouTube. I'm doing shorter videos. I think they're really fun. I think you'll enjoy them. And like I said, as always, have a good one.